Welcome back to Let's Chat. Let's Chat is an opportunity for me to have a sit down conversation with my colleagues here at the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council. And today I have the honor of chatting with Mr. Keishon Williams. Mr. Keishon Williams is a nutritionist, and his responsibility at GFNC is to cover the areas of St. John and St. Mark. Mr. Williams, welcome to Let's Chat.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy to be here to speak about a very important issue.
hmm And the issue that you want to discuss today is belly fat and how it can lead to metabolic syndrome. Heavy topic. So before we jump into that, in our conversations you shared with me, you first started off as a pharmacy assistant and then you moved to nutrition and became a nutritionist. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition?
So I did a course in Ghana in pharmacy, and so I was in that field and dealing with persons that needed medication for diabetes, hypertension, and so on. And what you see is that even though they're taking the medication, once the diet is not in order, they still had many problems controlling those conditions. And after some counseling and you try to teach them about the diet and what they need to do, once they get that under control, you start seeing some changes. So then I realized that diet really plays a strong part in controlling and even preventing some of those diseases that we see today. So I think
Very.
that is what led to my career path as a nutritionist.
hmm And you became a nutritionist through furthering your studies. Where did you complete your studies in this area?
Yeah, well, I was fortunate to go to China, and so I completed my studies in China. I was in China for 6 years.
So we know that you do extensive work in the area of St. John and St. Mark. And when I approached you to do Let's Chat, this was a very important topic for you, belly fat and how it can lead to metabolic syndrome. So let's talk about belly fat. Can you explain what is belly fat and why is it considered to be dangerous?
Sure. So belly fat is, in simpler terms, is excess fat around the abdominal area. And there are two types of fat in that area. You have the subcutaneous fat, which is just under the skin, and then you have something called visceral fat. And visceral fat is more deeper than the subcutaneous fat, and it surrounds your organs. And it's considered, and that's the fat that is considered to be the dangerous one, the visceral fat. And the reason for that is because visceral fat is not just fat, but it behaves like an organ. It releases chemicals and substances in the body that can cause inflammation and be dangerous to health, and it also disrupt other hormones from functioning properly. So visceral fat, this is the fat that is considered to be really dangerous and can have a really bad negative impact on your health.
Okay, so thanks for that explanation. How does excess abdominal fat contribute to metabolic syndrome, and what exactly is metabolic syndrome?
Okay, so first of all, metabolic syndrome, it's a set of conditions that that put you at risk for developing diabetes, hypertension, high triglycerides, stroke, and heart attacks. Now,
hmm
how does abdominal fat contributes to that? First of all, the abdominal fat, remember, they are active and they release substances in your blood. So, since they are fat, it means that they're producing a lot of triglycerides, which is just another name for fat. And those fat get accumulated in your liver and in your muscles. Now, when they're accumulated in your muscles, they become toxic. And so they do not respond to insulin like they would normally do. So when there's a high amount of blood sugar in the body, the insulin, the liver and the muscles, they cannot or they do not respond to it, and that results in the sugar remaining high in your blood, and so that can lead to insulin resistance. Now, how does it affect hypertension? The triglycerides, they get accumulated in your blood vessels, and that can lead to plaque formation and stiffening of the artery of the blood vessels, and that can cause your pressure to increase and go up. It also leads to salt retention in the body. So when your blood vessels they stiffen up, your body interpret that as if you're in fight or flight mode, and so cortisol is released, and that further increases the sugar levels in the body, and it also increases your blood pressure as well. Visceral fat, it can also cause the blood to be thickened. And as a result, and because of that, it produces fibrinogen. And fibrinogen leads to clotting in the blood. So it thickens the blood and it can cause clots to form. And then that's where you find that person suffering from, might get a stroke, or they might get a heart attack, and so forth. Now, that excess triglyceride in the body, it causes something known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And that affects your liver now from functioning properly. It can lead to cirrhosis, it can lead to liver disease, and all of those things. And all of those things are happening just because of the belly fat. So this
Wow.
is how belly fat can affect, lead to metabolic syndrome.
Well, it's very rare that we get an opportunity to get this level of detail of explanation. So I really appreciate it. So what I'm understanding here is that with the visceral fat, you end up getting triglycerides, and that can affect different parts of the body in different ways. Yeah, it can get in
Exactly.
your muscles, it can get in your liver, and that kind of creates some toxicity and leads to insulin resistance. You also mentioned
Yes.
about hypertension and that it creates a thickening and thus leading to plaque built up in the blood vessels. My goodness. Then you talked about salt retention and the raising of cortisol levels, which puts the body in a fight or flight state all the time. And then
Exactly.
it also can cause some blood clotting, which because of the same thickening again. And then even worse than that, you can have like a non-alcoholic fatty liver. That's a lot that can come from belly fat, and especially if you have visceral fat. So now we've got all that scary news. As a nutritionist, what
Yes.
dietary habits or lifestyle factors most strongly contribute to the accumulation of belly fat?
Um, well, first of all, I would like to say stress. Stress is one of the main things I would say leads to belly fat. And the reason for that, there's actually two types of stress. There's physical stress and there is psychological stress. Now, physical stress is when you're in a fight or flight mode and you're trying to escape from something, you're trying to save your life. Psychological stress is when you're stressed from everyday life. So you have your deadlines to meet, bills and stuff like that. The problem is your body does not know how to separate the two. So it acts the same way. So when you're sitting and you feel stressed, your body is in a fight or flight mode. As a result, it's going to produce cortisol. Cortisol is going to increase your blood sugar in the body, and those excess sugar is going to be stored as fat. So you're going to see a lot of persons who are their job is mostly sitting, and there are a lot of sitting and stressed that they put on a lot of fat around the abdominal area. Another thing that leads to belly fat is a sedentary lifestyle. So you do not move about much. You're not too physically active. So you're not burning much energy, but you're still eating a lot. So a lot of those food gets stored as fat. All right.
Mhm.
Um, we also have high amount of refined carbs. So a lot of processed foods, they have high amount of sugar in it, especially the drinks. The drinks are basically mainly sugar and water. And so all of that sugar gets into your blood and you're not really moving, you're not burning it out. And so the body just stores it as fat.
For the listeners who may already have excess belly fat, what are some realistic steps they can take to reduce it and lower their risk of chronic disease?
Okay, so for persons who already have belly fat, as I mentioned before, stress is one of the main contributing factors. So you will have to find a way to manage that stress level. With chronic stress, it is very hard to lose that belly fat. And the reason for that, remember we talk about the cortisol and it increasing your blood sugar. And as a result, if your blood sugar is increased, it means your insulin level is also high. And normally when your insulin level is high, it's very hard to break down fat because insulin stores fat. So once the insulin level is high, it's hard to break down the fat. And chronic stress causes your insulin to remain high in the body. The second thing you want to do is portion control. So you want to portion out your food and make sure that you're not overeating a lot of carbs, which can contribute to the weight gain. And you can refer to a lot of materials like My Healthy Plate, My Caribbean Plate. Those would show you how you should portion out your plate, and so you will not really overeat. Also, exercise. Exercise. And we're finding that a lot of persons are not exercising. And it's for a main reason, a lot of reasons. And exercise is one of the best way to get rid of belly fat because it reduces your insulin in your blood. And once insulin is reduced, your body can then start burning fat. So I would say we need to exercise a lot. A lot of the processed foods and the sweet drinks. One thing about the processed foods, the main ingredients that is removed in the processed foods is fiber. And fiber helps to control the sugar release in the blood and your insulin level throughout the day so you don't get that spike. So increasing your fiber in your diet and reducing the processed food will greatly help to reduce the amount of belly fat because it helps to control that sugar release in your body.
Thank you for informing us about the correlation between belly fat and metabolic syndrome and just the seriousness of having visceral fat and the multiple ways in which it could impact the body, ultimately leading to a number of chronic non-communicable illnesses from diabetes and strokes and so forth. So I trust that this information will empower others. Any parting words?
I just want to say that I think is that this topic is very important because a lot of persons do not understand how dangerous belly fat, or more specifically visceral fat, can be, and so they're going through with those conditions and they're trying to find ways to cope with it, not realizing that this simple fat around the abdomen is contributing to all of those conditions that they're experiencing. And so by reducing 5 to 10% of belly fat, you can see some changes for persons who are diabetic. You can see some changes in your reading for your sugar, for hypertensive patients, the same thing, and so on.
That's Keishon Williams, a nutritionist here at the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council with responsibilities for St. John and St. Mark. If you're interested in Mr. Williams giving a presentation in those areas, you can send an email to gfnc@gov.gd and we will see how best we can schedule him in. Mr. Williams, thanks for your time.
And thanks for having me.